As I think you all know, we Bond Bank hosts two loan pools a year, in the winter and in the summer. We historically, for a long time, had just done one, and several years ago, we started doing two, to create two opportunities in the course of a year. And the idea is that we capture votes, November votes and March votes from town meeting, and create opportunities for folks who get those votes to get funding soon after. It's a bit of a process, because the way it works is we accept applications for loans from around the state, and then we use those loan applications as a basis for issuing a bond in the bond market, and then to fund those loans. And so it takes a little bit of time for us to kind of put that all together, to collect all the applications and do the credit analysis and get approval from our board of those loans, and then so that we can then go to the bond market and issue those bonds. And of course, issuing those bonds takes a bit of time too. But so in this case, and we'll touch on this again, but just to kind of make sure that everyone understands this, applications will be due December 18, but as many of you know, that we're not real rigid about that. If there are a few items that aren't quite complete, then that's okay. I essentially need to have everything, all the pieces, by early January, mid-January at the latest, so that I can go to my board in late January and get approval for those loans. And then we'll spend February issuing a bond to fund those loans, and then funds should be available right around the end of February or beginning of March sometime. Sometimes the bond issuance is timed for something happening in the marketplace to if we wait a week, we might get more favorable rates, or if we hurry, we might get more favorable rates or something. So there's a little bit of flexibility in when we issue. But before I go into too many details, I want to give you a market update about where the market is right now. This graph on the top is where the essentially it's a municipal curve. It's where AAA muni rates have been over the course of the past 12 months. So the far left side, that's where we were a year ago, and obviously it's been a volatile market, more so than we've seen historically for a while, with the exception of maybe last year or two. But for those who are used to seeing like equity markets and seeing rates for home mortgages and things as a kind of as a common way to see what's happening in the marketplace, muni bonds don't experience nearly as much volatility. So this has been a volatile period in the muni bond market, but still, rates have not fluctuated too wildly. And you can see at the tail end right here, and since just in the past couple of weeks, really, the rates have come down a touch. And in fact, in my assumptions here on the right side of 3.89% on 10 years, 4.49% on 20 years, and 4.75% on 30 years, they probably don't totally capture all of the extent of the reduction in rates in just like the past few days. We model on current market activity, and so it takes into account not just like what happened yesterday, but beyond that. So anyway, that's all to say that rates might even be, if we were to go to market tomorrow, a touch lower than those assumptions on the screen there. And whether that continues whether rates continue to come down or not is anybody's guess. But there is hope in the marketplace that will happen. The yield curve there on the bottom is still showing a bit of an inversion, which is a weird thing, but it happens from time to time. Inversion meaning that on the far left side, the line starts higher and goes down a little bit before then coming back up. And in a sort of an idealized world, the yield curve starts low on the left side and gradually increases moving toward the right side, meaning that the further out you go with a bond, the longer term you borrow over, the higher rates would be, basically. But in this case, the short-term rates are a touch higher than sort of medium-term rates. It's sort of a weird phenomenon. Basically, that's because when there are changes in the market, changes in the market affect short-term rates more than long-term rates. Long-term rates tend to be more stabilized by assumptions about regression and things. So anyway, probably enough of that. But if you ever have questions about the bond market, we love to have those conversations anytime. Maybe I should also say, since we're talking about rates, and we'll get to this again, but we don't know what rates will be on the loans until we price the bond, and that will happen in late February or early March. So we're projecting, not expecting any wild changes, but certainly there can be some fluctuation. Before I really get into the application, I do want to just share some updates, some news from the bond bank. For those who don't know, we host, this will be the third year we will be hosting the Vermont Capital Planning Forum, probably in Barrie. Not sure about that. Still planning is still underway, but we recognize that Vermont has not been great about supporting communities in the process of capital planning historically, and so we're trying to take a lead on convening people to develop best practices and support better capital planning moving forward. Maybe especially in the era of climate change and severe weather events. It's probably maybe even especially important to think deliberately about capital planning, and especially with and integrate emerging information about climate. So also, we're developing new programs for energy projects and for flood recovery response, and neither is fully baked yet, but we hope both will be soon. In fact, we have we expect on the flood response side, we expect to have there's a meeting tomorrow, I believe, with the Treasurer's Office, with the LIAC committee, the Local Investment Advisory Committee, for approval for a capitalization source for us to be able to lend to communities who have been impacted by the flood, who might need funds to bridge to FEMA reimbursement. After Irene, there wasn't such a need for a facility like this because short-term rates were relatively low. So the cost of carrying debt while awaiting FEMA reimbursement was not particularly high. But in this environment, it is. It's could be rates are in the 5% range. We expect that a lot of communities, we know that a lot of communities are going to carry a fair amount of debt while they await FEMA reimbursement, and so we're going to make this available so they can borrow on a 1-ish% basis. We're working on bringing that down even lower. And then on the energy side, many of you have been hearing about this for a while, but we're getting closer and maybe even able to do our first loan is maybe next month, maybe as soon as next month, January probably, more likely. We are tapping into federal funds to essentially subsidize the cost of energy projects. The first source for this is a USDA source that has made a loan to us of $40 million. So it's substantial funding available for low cost loans for energy projects. So whether there are aspects of the projects you're doing now that could be separated out and funded through another facility specifically for energy, or moving forward, please kind of keep that in mind. So our main two programs are the pooled loan program and the SRF program. The SRF program is, we work with DEC on, and we do the underwriting of the loans, and DEC does, receives the loan applications and works on all of the reviewing the projects and all of the engineering stuff, and the prioritization of subsidy and all of those sorts of things. And we work with you on making those loans and managing repayment and things like that over time, specifically for water, wastewater, and stormwater. The pooled loan program is sort of our flagship program that goes back 50 years, and it's really for anything that a town or a school district or any sort of governmental unit in the state would want to do. It's a quite flexible program, and we're able to access the tax-exempt bond market to get the lowest rates possible, basically, for those projects, and that's what we were set up to do. So sort of advantages of that pooled loan program are rating. For one, it's a AA plus rating that we leverage sort of state credit enhancements to bring, to get that rating, to bring rates down, to rock bottom. And we do all the issuance. Issuing a bond is it's a very technical thing. And New York City issues their own bonds, of course. Lots of big cities do, but in Vermont, obviously, we don't have. We shouldn't be expected to have that expertise in our municipality. So we exist to provide that and to pass on the savings. It's also it's a sort of helps create an economy of scale, so that a small loan in one community can be part of a much bigger pool, and not require all the legal fees and things like that, and the issuance fees that an individual issuance might would require. The considerations are that must be, generally speaking, must comply with tax-exempt financing. Talk to us if it doesn't qualify as a tax-exempt project. There may be a way there is a way for us to finance it still, but generally speaking, we're assuming that most of these deals will be tax-exempt deals. So repayment for pooled loan program loans is semi-annual, with payment with interest and principal due on November 1st, and interest only due on May 1st. And funds, the way you get funds is through the disbursement agent. So you requisition funds. All of the funds are available to you basically on the day after closing. In this case, it'll be, like I said, on or around March 1. And you just have to send a requisition request to the disbursement agent. But the turnaround time is a day, basically. And we do refinance. We monitor for refinancing opportunities, and this is what it looks like on your schedule. If your bonds become callable, usually in 8 to 10 years, I think this one is probably likely to be callable in 8 years. And so, depending on the interest rate environment, there could likely be, and I say likely, I guess, partly because of where we are now in the interest rate environment, an opportunity for refinancing those bonds that fund your loan. I say bonds because they're serialized, so they're different maturities, but those would be presumably refunded in 8 years, and we would pass the savings on to you. And you don't have to. We'll reach out and let you know that that's happening, but don't have to worry about doing that. So loan terms, we can make a loan for 100% of the project cost, and there's no loan limit. There could potentially be, if it's a huge loan, a $200 million loan, it could potentially run into if it becomes too big of a percentage of our portfolio, that could be raise some questions, but that's not generally an issue. Interest rates are basically as low as possible. The amortization cannot exceed the useful life of the project. It can be shorter. It can be quite short. I'm not sure what the shortest amortization is we have done, but even 5 years is possible. We can go up to 30 years. There's some flexibility with deferring principal payments. Generally speaking, we assume that most communities are going to want to defer the first principal payment sort of while the project is in process or before it goes into use. But you don't have to wait. You could start paying principal right away, or you could defer it for up to 5 years. The underwriting criteria is basically the same underwriting criteria that the credit rating agencies use, Moody's, S&P, and we look at your debt capacity, but and so there's some information we request in the application, and I may follow up with some questions and things, but generally speaking, the main thing we need is voter authorization. So if you have that, then the voters say, hey, we're willing to pay for this project, then that's a pretty good vote of confidence. And then there are some benchmarking tests we do to sort of see that it's feasible, that it's not going to be too stressful on the local situation. And no fees, I should say. Okay. So things you're going to need for the application. We do need audits, but really only 1 year is what we absolutely need. And then if you have 3 years, we'd love to see those too. And about bond counsel opinion letter, like I said, is an important piece. There's a form on the application, or a form that you can download for putting in your debt schedule, your debt service schedule, so that we know what your debt service costs are going to be over the years ahead. If you have a capital plan, we'd love to see that. If you don't have a capital plan, we'd love to help you figure out how to put one together too, separately. Please, like I said, we have our capital planning forum in April. We'd love to see you there. Impact data, we request some impact data about the project. A lot of the stuff in the application it wouldn't apply to your project, but to the extent that it does, like how many students would be served by the project, or how many feet of road, streetscape is going to be improved by the project, those kinds of things. We love to collect that. The state auditor's checklist is required. That's something you should have on hand, I assume. And then there are two different forms of application, a special district or enterprise one and a governmental activities one. And so for the governmental activities one, and I should note, it's important that you choose the right one for your project. And if you're not sure, let me know. But I'm kind of going to assume that when I see the applications that you've chosen the right one. I guess if I see something that looks unusual, I'll reach out. But so for the governmental activities one, we wanted know about the five largest taxpayers. In the enterprise one, it's ratepayers. And in the governmental activities one, we also want to know about five largest employers. And then we also want to know about any delinquent taxes and ratepayers as appropriate. There's a If you're gonna spend funds before the project, before borrowing for the project, it's important to put in place what's called a notice of intent or declaration of official intent. Your bond counsel can help you do that. Um, as I mentioned, in some of our application for the enterprise and special district applications, we're interested in the rate structure, and we'll also need projections for the system. It's a sort of a revenue basis for that underwriting. So we need to see what your projections are like for revenue and expense. And school district specific data too. Education spending for the past 2 and current years, and the homestead tax rate for all the towns in the school district are we need those. If you are a current borrower, we need to have received your annual post issuance compliance form. We'll talk about that in a minute as a reporting requirement. So, if you have a loan outstanding and haven't gotten your annual post issuance compliance form in, please do. So while completing the application, like I said, you need to choose the correct application. And you may need to complete multiple applications. That was the case last pool. The town had a water project that they needed to complete an enterprise application for, and then I think it was a streetscape project that required the government activities application. So you can have separate applications for different projects, but generally speaking, you could also have different parts of a kind of a coherent project combined in one application too. That's possible if they're both governmental activities projects. If they're building a town hall and I don't know, doing the streetscape around it or whatever, like those could be separate projects and even separate loans, but you can do them in the same application. There's a place in the application for identifying separate projects. And about browsers, please use Chrome or Firefox or Edge, but not Windows Explorer. Some reason, I don't know, a technical reason beyond me, that Windows Explorer doesn't work as well. The contact on the application should be the person completing the application, and the person will be the contact through the process. So there's a place on the application. Is there anything else you'd like us to know? That if you could put like another person there, we should talk to, that would be fine. But generally speaking, we don't necessarily just need the sort of, I don't know, official. We don't need the select board chair or necessarily the town manager. If whoever, presumably those of you on this call, whoever is going to be doing the application and really our contact for the project is the best person to have there as the contact. And signing the application is not signing a loan agreement. So it's you can submit this application. There's no commitment at that point. We will review it. We'll talk to you. Maybe you say, you know what, at the end of the day, we're gonna shelf this project and do it next pool or something. That's fine. Let's see. As you go through the pages of the application, you don't need to save draft. You can just kind of keep going, and it does automatically save as you go. If you have multiple applications if you're working on multiple applications, the best thing to do is to to create a different login for the second one, because if you have one login, you're basically only allowed to have one live application. You could do, if you want to just use one login, you can complete an application, submit it, and then start another one and complete that and submit that. But you can't have two overlapping open applications in the same login at the same time. So to get started, here's what our website looks like. What our at the top right, there's a login button, and it'll ask you to create an account, or if you have one from before, you can log in. Of course, if you have any trouble with that, just reach out. Let me know. I think look behind the scenes and find your information or whatever. You can also apply at the top there, and look at your submissions at the top there. Once you get into the application, this type of application field is what I was referring to earlier, where there are three different options to choose. I might have misspoken earlier and said two. There's a school district one, governmental activities one, and a special district or enterprise one as well. And they do trigger different questions, so best to use the right one. And as I noted, you can move forward with the buttons on the bottom, but no need to save as you go. And then you have to review the application prior to submitting. If you did one a few years ago, that might not have been the case, but it's a requirement now that you click review and you review it, and then before you can click submit. And then when you do, there's an opportunity to download the PDF of the submission. No need to save it and send it to me. I'll get the submission through the website, but if it's good to have. Might be just for your own records. It might be good to have. May as well grab it there. So again, the timeline. So we organize two pools each year, one in the winter and one in the summer. And in this case, the applications are due December 15 or December 18. Sorry. So here we are in November, and that box on the left side, hosting our webinar, getting folks ready, starting to hopefully hopefully you all are starting to get your things together, get your materials together, and to the extent that you have questions, hopefully now's a good time to be reaching out to me about those questions, so that by mid-December we're collecting those. We have most of that information anyway, ideally all, but then by early January, hopefully we do have everything at that point, and and to the extent that there are final questions, I can be finalizing those with you, so that I can take those to my board, get their approval, and then after approval, I'll send a commitment letter to you all to sign. It doesn't have interest rates on it yet, because those aren't determined until we close. But and that's for us the kind of gives us the confidence we need to enter our own loan agreement, to basically our own bond agreement, when we issue a bond. And then funds are available right after closing. So post closing, I will send out a closing packet, a notice of closing with some different forms that you can use to both set up to engage with the disbursement agent, basically at U.S. Bank, which is the custodian of the funds. They hold the funds, and so we create an account. We create a project account for you. Your money goes into that account, and then you work with them for reimbursement, for requisitioning those funds, and for managing those funds that are sitting in that account while you await reimbursement, or you have to really wait for reimbursement. But until you need those funds can be invested. And so there's an investment advisor there who you can work with, and there's some forms that provide you an opportunity to make elections about how to invest that money. There are arbitrage rules that apply. The idea is that you can't, you can't invest those funds in a way to make a profit on that money, but you can invest in short term, money market funds and things that right now are yielding pretty well. So you can manage you can mitigate the cost of interest awaiting deployment of those funds pretty effectively. And those forms are available at the bottom of our website as well. If you have any, if you aren't able to locate the letter I send, and at some point down the road you want to access those forms, they're there for you. So reporting requirements, generally on March 1st every year, we require a financial report and post-issuance checklist, and you can upload them through our website right there. The certificate of project completion is also something we need, but not until obviously the project is completed. I realize a lot of folks are having a hard time getting their audits completed by March 1st, even if you're on a July through June fiscal year. Seems like audits are slow to be complete by that following March. We understand that. If that's the case, submitting just self-prepared financials can work. All right, that's my spiel about the application process and the pooled loan program and how it works. And I'm sure you have questions. I'm going to stop sharing now. That's the contact information from myself and for my colleagues. Yep, there are only 3 of us who make up the bond bank. So never hesitate to reach out to any of us at any time. Though I'm probably the right person to ask about most questions as they relate to borrowing. Okay.